Hey everyone, this is Disc Junkie and welcome back to my man cave of madness. Now, today I have a project which is basically a very sort of fundamental IKEA hack. And the thing I'm going to do today is that in this sort of main room that I have, which I'm sure you've seen many times before, there basically exists this little corner, which is like my, main place of business, one might say. This is the place where I sit whenever I have, some time over in the nights. I try to sit here and watch movies. Got my TV way over there. And it's just, a very sort of well set up place. I'm really happy with, where I have this. I have my comfy chair and I have my red lamp in the background there, which I'm also very much in love with. But, I mean, the problem with this, for one thing, this chair has actually got a bit of damage to it. I've had it for a couple of years now, and I realized that I get this little damage to the seat. So, I mean, it's still very comfy and I love it, but it is actually quite big, and it's really sort of obtrusive, and it, sort of invades the rest of the room. So I've been considering to actually replace this with something else. I do have some ideas for it, but in doing so, I've also been considering like maybe I should be adding some sort of shelf for this wall. Now I know this isn't a whole lot of wall space to use, but at the same time, I'm always in need of more space. I got all these shelves around the room, and although these shelves are actually custom shelves, I mean, these white ones, they are basically the regular Billy bookcases. This is a 40 centimeter one, then I got an 80 centimeter one, another 80, and it just goes around the room. There I got some custom solutions with different height, but it's basically all built from Billy bookcases. Then on top of that, I have this black board, which wasn't purchased at IKEA. I just bought this as like the local lumber yard or wherever they were selling these boards, and these were originally white. I actually spray painted them black using a matte black spray paint, and then I just sort of added them on the outside of the Billy. So it's not like this is a super expensive setup or anything. I basically built this from typical IKEA stuff, and yeah. In any case, I've been wanting to add some extra shelves here just to have for like example, I got all these sort of vintage pocketbooks, which I felt like I don't have a good space for. So I thought I could build a very sort of shallow shelf and just have some of these old pocketbooks here, and they could sort of line up so I had somewhere to place those. However, something to think about is that, when I add a shelf section here, this will mean that I can't have the chair as far back against the wall like I have now. So obviously a big chair like this would become, sort of pushed further into the room, which is also part of why I would like to replace this with something much less big, essentially. But that is the idea for today. I'm gonna try to build my own set of custom shelves, just like these wall shelves, which will be roughly like 20 centimeters in depth. One shelf over here, and then another shelf on that small piece of wall right there, because I still want to keep that lovely red lamp. I think I will actually keep that in the corner, because that is essentially the best place to have it in terms of, just random positioning. I really want it in the corner, because that way it doesn't reflect very much in the TV when I'm watching the TV, and it's just the best place to have it. And I figured I should also just move this chair out of the way so you can see what it looks like without it. This is basically the corner, just a lamp. This was a second-hand find, which I picked up a few years back. It's just a sort of, not a super high lamp. It sort of goes up to eyesight height, I suppose, which sounded very German. But the obvious question is what I'm gonna use to actually build this. Well, it's quite a mess, but I did pick up these shelves, which are second-hand shelves. These are old Benno CD cases or CD towers from IKEA. And if you are gonna try to use this, I am wanting to mention some specific details about this type of shelves. I picked these up secondhand. They didn't cost too much. I paid roughly like 250 and I got 3 of them. They're all stacked right there. So that's not so much. They still have these at IKEA, but I'm not sure if you would want to purchase these new to do something like this. You can also see that I actually have some white bookcases here, actually add-on shelves. It's an add-on shelf for a desk. And this little shelf here is called Paul, and It's something you can get at IKEA right now. I'm not sure if it's a new type of shelf, but it's not something I've been noticing before. And they are basically, you know, 20 centimeters in depth, roughly. So it's not a very sort of deep shelf, very shallow. This would have been a great thing to work with for me, but they only exist in white and they only exist in this specific height, which is quite low. But if you are looking to get a sort of, you know, Billy type bookcase, but something that's more shallow, then I would definitely check out the pole shelf if that is large enough for you. With this being said, the pole is not for me, or at least not in this project, because I wanted to go with all black shelves, and I can't find the black shelf which is that shallow, so I'm gonna build one for myself. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're just gonna start off with sawing these. And another thing to consider if you are doing this project or doing something similar is also that you will want to check what kind of Benno shelf you have, because these are like the earlier versions. You will notice that you have these small sort of indentation or hole here at the back, whereas there's nothing on the front section. And the reason for that is the little studs in the shelf are actually leveled at different heights, which means that you will need shelves which are, you know, have that little hole in the back. There's a bunch of different studs from IKEA. They've changed these over the years, but this is like one of the most recognizable common ones. And these are also IKEA studs. These have the same sort of thickness here on one side, and then they have a second side which is much slimmer, and this is actually to accommodate for a newer style of Benno shelf. They essentially changed this some years ago. The shelf is now called Gnedby if you purchase it new, and it's basically the same shelf, but some of the differences, for one thing, they've replaced the studs, so now they have these studs which fit into smaller holes, but they still use the same thickness on the other side. And they also have new shelves which are hollowed out both in the front and in the back, which means that the holes for the studs are now equally leveled, whereas in the old shelves they're differently leveled. Enough rambling, let's just start dismantling this, and then we're gonna saw it to the length that we need.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You crazy mother.
Alright, so the groundwork is now done for the first shelf. I've basically taken these two side panels and just sawed them in half. And you can see here, if I just flip them around, here we go. This is basically the bottom portion, and then there's the top portion. So just cut that off at the proper height, which is exactly the same height as your typical lowercase Billy bookshelf. Now, you want to consider stuff like you're going to be ending up with one of these rough wood tops, which you might not want to have visible. But seeing as I have this extra board on top of my Billy, you know, I will want to add an extra board here as well. So I thought I'd just take the simplest route possible. And so I've now sawed two identical pieces based on these side panels. So just to sort of give you an idea of what this is going to be, just gonna try to position the second one over here. Hopefully it doesn't fall over as I'm walking around. Gotta move like a ninja. So then we got the top panel. This is the panel that was on top of that. And now I'm basically just flipping this downwards. I'm just laying it down to get an idea of how this is looking in terms of the level. And, well, I gotta say the level is actually pretty good. Maybe I will shorten it. I noticed that my panel is quite too long now, but I just wanted to show you quickly so you get an idea. So I had another panel there which will work as the bottom shelf. So that's what I'm converting that to. But yeah, this is the idea. And one of the things which I think is good if you want to do something similar, you know, part of the clever thing about this hack, if you are doing it the way I'm doing it, this will actually allow you to reuse the original cutout for the backing board. And you'll even have that in the top piece if you're doing it that way. So that's just a little clever thing to do. And I'm thinking I'm also gonna try to reuse as much of sort of scrap pieces and stuff I have from IKEA already. And I think that I'm actually gonna try to use these for most of the assembly, if you will. And this is like your typical IKEA bracket. This comes with basically every furniture they make when we're talking about shelves and stuff. And this is the one you put in the wall, and then you sort of safeten your shelf so it's not falling over and stuff. And I just have a bunch of these laying around from just, you know, years of doing a lot of IKEA assembly, and it's not like you always need them. So I just tend to save them and have them in a drawer. And then you have these little bolts, which are also commonly used together with this. So they are, you know, adjusted to match. And these bolts are also adjusted to match IKEA's sort of standardized hole size. Which means that in this case, I can actually utilize these holes up here like so, or at least that's the idea, and just use the pre-drilled holes. I'm not saying this will work for everybody, but I think it's a great thing to consider if you're making shelves from IKEA scratch, because these bolts are actually, you know, 100% adapted to work for these. And I should also mention that the length of these screws have changed over the years, so if you're doing this, just be careful so you're not using a too long screw, because they're quite close together and you might end up sort of, you know, breaking the wood because it's too long. And if you have brackets like this laying around, it's very easy to just use those kind of bolts, add these kind of brackets, and then you get a real simple, cheap scrap part, which you can actually use. So yeah, now that ended up being over there. But it doesn't matter, this is not a perfect video. So yeah, let's just continue. So I have now sawed up all the pieces for my two shelves, and these are basically, you know, the base frames. And something else is that I've actually added a little bit of spray paint. If you were in this room, you could actually smell the spray in the air. But the only thing I did is that I basically added a bit of black paint, not much, just a little bit. You can see that it's not a perfect job. There's still some unpainted specks there, but that's just to sort of conceal the color of the raw wood. And I did the same at both of these side panels top. I know these aren't really visible, but if you're seeing through a crack or something, that light sort of raw wooden color is really going to shine through. So I really wanted to sort of conceal that the best I could. But yeah, these are the frames, and now I'm going to mount them with brackets and stuff. And yeah, then we're just gonna put everything in position and see how it feels. Right, the shelves are actually completed, and I know that my hair has changed. I decided to take a bit of a shave, and yeah, I'm not very known for shooting my videos at one given time, so you're just gonna have to bear with the continuity. But anyway, let's just go ahead and check out my little display. And so here is what the final presentation is like. I am really liking this. I'm not done with this section by any means, but I did put up some stuff and I wanted to show you just what it looks like with the lamp and all that. I gotta say, it is very much exactly what I thought it would be, and I think it looks really awesome. I did run into some issues, which I thought I would mention. For one thing, there's actually a couple of shelves which ended up being too short. This is primarily noticeable here, and I mean, it's not something you're gonna notice unless you go in really close, but you can see it's actually quite the gap there. And I also had the same problem over here. You might actually have seen this in the time-lapse which I just made, that I'm actually drilling out one of the front parts and not just the back part. Plain stupidity, but it's something that happened. But I was able to solve this with a really simple solution, and that is that instead of using the regular little studs, I decided to use one of these classic IKEA bolts or screws, which are normally used for the baseboards to sort of go into the wooden stuff. And so I don't have any of those anywhere else, but I did use them here to get an elongated screw so that I get past that unfortunate little hole which I accidentally drilled. But yeah, I am really liking the result. I'm not 100% on all shelves. There are some little sort of places where it's just not as, you know, long as should be. But you're not going to think about this, especially with a bunch of stuff in it like I usually have. And yeah, apart from that, you know, I made the same thing here with the elongated stud. And the whole functionality of drilling out the back of the shelves was really simple. I mean, if you're doing this and you're using the same side panels with the different heights for the holes, I would just advise you to drill out the back of the shelves, because it's just a simple solution. And, you know, you just follow the markings for the stud, so it's quite easy to sort of calculate where your holes should be. But just looking at the shelves here from underneath, you can see that I have the brackets here. I use the same functionality and the same process for all of the corners. I also used this way below, which you can see here underneath the shelves. Same process on both sides, just these simple IKEA brackets which come with basically every furniture. And I didn't actually place any sort of wooden front at the bottom. I know that the regular Billies have this, and I have this all around the room. Whoops, this one is loose. But you didn't actually see that happen, so let's just forget about it. And it can also be mentioned, like you might be able to see here, that I didn't actually use the screws which I mentioned earlier. The only reason why I didn't use these is because, you know, it just didn't align exactly the way I wanted it to be. It could have worked if I had sawed my shelves in a different length, a different height and stuff, but it just ended up not really matching. But it's still a pretty good tip, I think. And I decided to use the shelves for some books primarily. These are some of these vintage erotic pocket books which I collect. And if you're just tuning into the channel, you know, I don't know, you're gonna have to figure that stuff out for yourself. But it's just something that I have, and I've really been looking for a bookshelf to keep them in, and I just think this works wonders. I also have a bit of a Dexter section over here. I'm a big fan of the Dexter TV series, and I had some stuff which I haven't really been able to display before, but I decided to make a space for this now, so got some stuff like that. Here is my devil or fawn head, which commonly houses my headphones for when I'm sitting here watching TV. Some other medical stuff here. But I'm not gonna get too detailed about all this. I'll probably make an overview video at some point to show the entire man cave once I'm done with filling out some of these shelves, which are not yet filled. It's a small sort of Jacob's ladder slash just random stuff. Like here's a promo syringe for Touristas, and you know, I do like to mix stuff up, but going a bit psychotic or just crazy over there, so yeah. But in any case, before I go, here is just a quick shot of the room without any additional lights in it. So let me just turn off this lamp like so, and then you can just see what the corner looks like without anything in it. So yeah, I'm really happy the way the lamp turned out. I'm not crazy about the fact that it's, you know, shining on the ceiling like that, but it's still really cool, and it gives a very sort of warm and fuzzy feeling over here. So yeah, I still have my really big chair, which I usually have in this corner, but you know, I can still keep it there even though it's sort of obstructing the view of this beautiful corner which I've now created. But you know, I'm really happy with this. I'm probably going to replace the chair anyway, so we'll have something not as obtrusive, I suppose. But in any case, that is it for the man cave this time. I really hope you enjoyed this IKEA hack themed video. Let me know in the comments if you have tried something else sort of similar to this, or if you've made some other sort of IKEA hacks that you want to talk about. You know, I'm always open to suggestions for this room, because I'm always trying to find more space. And I think this is one of those projects which really worked out, creating a sort of very shallow shelf, which actually can swallow quite a lot of stuff, like if you have pocketbooks or stuff like that, and you don't want to go like full Billy depth on your shelves. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and as usual, hope to see you all next time.